Ahead of Jeff Paterson. Today's guests are brought to you by Langley Chrysler. Get ready this spring with up to 25% off Ram and Jeep, whether you need to haul the family to sports or tow the boat to the lake. You can find it in-store or online at langleychrysler.com. You have a text you wanted to read?
We got a ton of texts coming in.
By the way, you can text us 604-200-9494.
I'm having trouble keeping up with these. The texts are coming in. Anyways,
okay.
Things we learned this week. Donnie's got a crooked cane, a big head, and is a fan of the pianist. Lots of laughs this week, guys. Keep up the great work. That's Telly in North Van.
Okay, an update. I found the cane.
You found the cane?
I forgot to bring it in. But
Really?
I have this old crooked cane, and I'm going to wave it around, the cane. I'm going to wave it around whenever I go on an old man rant. You can do the same thing. Because you got accused of being an old man, even though you're not.
Somebody in
as old
Port
as me.
Alberni called us dinosaurs, but that's okay.
I'm not surprised it took you a while to find your cane.
Why? Oh, okay. Come on.
Listen.
You can do better than that.
We're going to be in the next Jurassic Park movie, Donnie,
Hey,
you and I.
Meanwhile, I forgot that the Canucks had a number 70 on their roster. Jim Marshall, Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, you're getting ripped for this.
I know.
The purple people eaters were not 50 years ago. They were 30 years ago. Fran Tarkenton. We just got text.
It was the 70s.
Okay,
can you add?
Listen, we're 50 years ago. Let me read this. Purple people eaters were 50 years ago, not 30. Got to admit, I always thought Ryan was 15 years old on radio. Surprised to see the gray in the beard, the stump. That's from the stump.
J-Pat's waiting here.
Okay, let's go to J-Pat.
Okay.
Let's see if he remembers the
More
purple
on Jim
people
Marshall
eaters. Fran
in a second.
Tarkenton. Loved him. Go.
Fran Tarkenton was not a purple people eater. He was a quarterback.
I know, but he was on the Vikings team. I'm
Jim
telling you, I
Marshall,
love that team.
Alan Page,
Yeah.
Gary Larson,
Joe Cap.
and Carl Eller.
Joe Cap was there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, he was a quarterback.
Yeah.
It'll click in.
Yeah.
Okay. Brought to you by Langley Chrysler on a Friday. Jeff Paterson, how are you, sir?
I'm good. And Fran Tarkenton hosted That's Incredible in the
Yes.
offseason.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jeff.
And you're talking about number 70s. Have I heard a Braden Holtby drop here?
With the Washington Capitals.
70
49
with the
now,
Cap-
70
Yeah.
70 with the Capitals.
Jeff, you want to change seats
Apparently,
with us?
I'm getting really old and forgetting a lot of 70s here. Okay, first of all,
But
Jeff,
really, it reminds me of the Purple People Eaters, Don. I want to hear Dolly say Purple People Eaters a whole bunch more throughout the show.
No, it's not going to
No,
happen. No.
hey, we've only got 2 hours here. It's not going to happen. All right, Jeff, let's talk first of all about tonight's postponement. The right move, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that after all that JT Miller had to say the other day, that clearly people above him in the organization and at the league, they listened and more importantly, they heard what he had to say. Because I was worried that he was going to speak his piece, and even at that, they were just going to say, we're in a time crunch here. Just go play the game. Shut up and play the game. And so clearly people were willing to listen to JT Miller was the public face. I imagine that there were others that lent their voices in behind the scenes. And yes, for the health of these players, and it is health first and foremost, the Friday game, that one was always – I remember talking to you guys, and we were targeting – we thought maybe the Saturday game against the Leafs originally. The idea that the league had put a game before that, given all that the Canucks had been through, that just seemed crazy when they announced the relaunch schedule. And so not surprised that they're not playing tonight. Still don't know officially about Saturday night, but I see that the Jets and the Oilers have been moved into the primetime Hockey Night in Canada time slot, so I think that tells you all you need to know. And now it's looking like it's going to have to be back-to-back against the Leafs, which is going to be a challenge coming out of the gate, but at least there's going to be a few extra days of lead-up here to help these players as much as it can. What that means for them ultimately and what they look like when they hit the ice, I guess we'll find out. But extraordinary, just an extraordinary 48 hours here around the Vancouver Canucks.
Does this postponement and maybe 1 or 2 more, and there's been 11 schedule changes, by the way, in the North Division because of the Canucks situation, does it happen, Jeff, if JT Miller doesn't speak publicly?
Probably not, and it's a shame that it came to that a player had to sort of take it upon himself, and I'd love the backstory, and hopefully we'll get it, whether it was JT asking to be the one, whether he was nominated by his teammates. We know that he's outspoken. We know that he wears his heart on his sleeve. We've seen the outbursts on the ice this year, even when he's playing and playing well. He's a vocal guy, and so I wasn't surprised that JT Miller was the one that said what he said the other day. Going to hear from Bo Horvat today, which will be interesting because Bo will be the first player that was in COVID protocol in this 2-week run for the Canucks. JT Miller wasn't, and Tanner Pearson was made available to the media earlier in the week to talk about his contract. He, too, wasn't in the COVID protocol. So we're going to hear from the captain today and hopefully get a few answers about what has gone on, not just with him personally, but the dynamic of the team and the fact that it was the players leading the charge here. We're also going to hear from Jim Benning, which I think is really interesting because never in my time covering the Canucks, certainly as Jim has been the general manager, do I recall him doing media post-practice. I mean, usually it's the players and the head coach, and we just don't know sort of where Travis Green is in all of this, whether he's on the ice conducting these practices or not. Is he going to be ready to go when they get up and running here? And the very fact that it is the general manager and not the head coach, I think, is a story in and of itself, and certainly those types of questions would be put to Jim Benning, so maybe we'll get an update on, because it's not just Travis Green. We've heard that other members of the coaching staff were down for the count too. So who's going to be available? Who's going to be behind the bench? Who's conducting these practices? All of this because these practices are happening in this shroud of secrecy and behind, a curtain. And as a media guy, I'm all about access. I want to go. I want to be able to tell the stories and get the information. And second day in a row that we're being told, no, we're not allowed there. And so, again, I come back to, it's been an extraordinary couple of weeks, but really these last 48 hours, so many twists and turns and plot changes. I can't remember many sort of 2-day stretches like this in terms of off-ice news for the Vancouver Canucks in my 2 decades on the beat.
Jeff, I certainly get the feeling from talking to people around the National Hockey League, the variant played a role here. It wasn't just the normal COVID. So that's why, I'm really worried about the players. I don't think they're going to have enough time to play, Jeff. I mean, these guys are professional. Last game 3 weeks ago, last practice over 2 weeks ago. And to ask them to just jump in and play a game is going to be tough in my eyes. I know a lot of them were having a tough time on the ice yesterday. Do you think still, despite Friday and Saturday getting called up, do you still think they have enough time here, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean, that's why I want to hear from some of the players, Rick, just to know how extreme. I mean, it's affected everybody a little differently. Alex Edler spoke to one of the Swedish newspapers, and so sort of the first-hand account of any Canuck, just using Google Translate to its most efficiency this morning, and getting it translated from Swedish to English. And Alex Edler, he said he was back in the gym yesterday, but he wasn't on the ice, so he wasn't one of the ones that skated. He said he had COVID, and then one of his daughters had it, and so he and the daughter were forced to live in the basement, and the wife and the other daughter were upstairs. We've heard that from a few of the Canuck players. Edler said his symptoms lasted longer than a week, and he said it was on the 8th day that the fever hit him. And so, he said he's okay, but he said he heard that some of his teammates were having breathing issues. That's just one player. So until we get a better sense of what they all went through individually and where they are collectively, and then this idea of assembling a team and asking it to play another team that, hasn't skipped a beat here. Like the Leafs aren't playing particularly well right now, but they've been playing. They've been playing every other day, and they're in midseason form, and the Canucks clearly aren't. So, there are still so many questions unanswered off the ice, but also what they're going to look like when they get on the ice, who's available, how are they going to line up, what will the lineup look like, all of those things. And because we're not able to get to practice, we just don't have the answers right now.
It seems like the NHL is stuck on the Canucks completing their 56-game schedule. Do you understand why, Jeff?
Yeah, money.
Of course.
Money.
Yeah, okay.
And so does Dolly, of course. But beyond that, it is hard to justify, Don. Like when I saw the quote from Bill Bailey to Ken Campbell in the Hockey News, just talking about, it's like an Olympic year. No, it's not like an Olympic year. An Olympic year, every team is shut down for the same amount of time. And not, one team isn't forced to deal with this global pandemic and the variant unlike anybody else around the league. So I thought that was kind of a crazy quote from the National Hockey League's number 2. And, look, the games won't mean much to the Canucks ultimately in terms of playoffs, but draft lottery seeding. You can go up points percentage. I guess the concern is that these games do matter to other teams. Like Calgary still thinks it has a shot at the playoffs. They've got 4 more games to go against Montreal. They beat the Habs the other night. So Calgary's going to want to play every game available to it until it's mathematically eliminated. And same for the Oilers. They want home ice advantage. Even though there aren't fans in the stands, you want to finish as high as possible. And so a game like last night or a game tonight rather that gets postponed, it may not mean much to the Canucks. They ultimately could scrap that one, but if you're the Edmonton Oilers, it may come down to the final game of the season. They're neck and neck with Winnipeg. They're playing Winnipeg tomorrow. So from a league standpoint, competitive balance, all that kind of stuff, I guess I get it, but at the same time, I just think it's probably in the grand scheme too big an ask for the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, 19 games in 31 originally, and now it's more compressed than that. I don't know how they do it.
Troy Stetcher is going to join us off his 2-goal game last night against Chicago, Jeff. Before we let you go, he's going to join us just after 11 o'clock. Would it have made sense for the Canucks to have kept Troy?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a popular guy.
Yeah.
And just before I say that, too, did you see the goal that he scored?
Yeah, the second one?
Yeah, like if you slow that down and watch it in slow motion.
Yeah, you really appreciate it, don't you?
Look, I've got all the time in the world for Troy Stetcher, and so, disappointed to see him go just because he was a guy that was great to deal with. I liked what he brought to the Vancouver Canucks, but it seemed that, maybe the coaching staff didn't see it the same way. Whatever the case, he's moved on. I'm glad that it's working out for him. He seems to be getting a decent role in Detroit. I know that that's a team that's got its issues, but yeah, I mean, when you look at the Canucks defense, I think you could build a pretty compelling case that there was room and a role for Troy Stetcher at the price point, ultimately, that he signed in Detroit. So I'm glad to see him having success last night, and good timing to get him on the show. I'm looking forward to hearing from him here in, half an hour, 40 minutes?
Yeah, Troy joining us just after 11 o'clock. Also in that 11 o'clock hour, we're going to run Jeff's interview in slow motion.
Yeah.
So we look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys have a great weekend. I'm going to spend most of mine just watching this entire show at half speed.
It'll probably be better. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, guys.
Brought to you by Langley Chrysler. Jeff with us every Wednesday and every Friday.